everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, hi, my name is Jenna and I'm back with another True Crime Tuesday video. Basically in these videos I like to talk about a true crime case and do my makeup at the same time. I'm not a makeup artist but I love makeup. I am not a detective but I'm interested in true crime. Put it all together and that is me. I really hope you can't hear the sea in the background, because it's hot in here. Excuse the wet hair as well, because I thought I'm losing my light. If I don't start filming soon, I'm going to be in darkness. What is with the weather? It goes from being beautiful and sunny to grim. Good old England. There's not much else to say today, so I will just get into the video. So today's case is about a man named Daniel LaPlante, and again, this happens in like every case I've done so far. Like the name is pronounced differently. Shut the damn window. In different sources, so I'm gonna go with LaPlante. This is a very unusual case and I'm pretty sure that I saw a film recently that was like partly based on this story. Can't remember what it was called. I think it was on Netflix. I'll try and find it. There isn't really a lot of information out there about Daniel's early life, so it's hard to get like a full background on who he was as a person. Also, for some reason, the story kind of differed a lot in different sources, so I'm going to do my best to put it all together into one story as best and as accurately as I can. So Daniel was born in 1970 in a place called Townsend in Massachusetts, and he lived with his mother and his father. Daniel had quite a traumatic upbringing, and although details are lacking, we do know that he was abused by various adults in his life, but the person who gave him the most abuse was his father. He would regularly physically, mentally and sexually assault Daniel on a regular basis. God, someone really needs to teach me how to match my foundation to my face. Well, it's not as bad as last week's. So because of this abuse, Daniel struggled like really badly in other aspects of his life as well. He didn't really have any friends at school, and this was mainly because he lacked the social skills to be able to talk to people, to make friends. He attended North Middlesex High School, and when he joined this school, things got even worse for Daniel. His peers just thought he was odd and described him as weird and creepy. Daniel also suffered from dyslexia, which of course makes things a lot more difficult at school anyway. Eventually, Daniel was referred to the school psychologist. This was just because of his general odd behaviour and the fact that he didn't seem to care at all for his own personal hygiene anymore. I couldn't find the name of the psychiatrist, but after working with Daniel for a little while, he diagnosed him with hyperactivity disorder, which is something that Daniel really struggled to come to terms with. These psychiatric sessions could have really turned things around for Daniel, but unfortunately things took quite a dark turn. After a while, the psychiatrist started to make sexual advances towards Daniel, and in the following school year the psychiatrist would sexually abuse Daniel during all of his sessions. So this boy had already been subjected to years of abuse at the hand of his father, and now he was getting the exact same thing from school. This would have, of course, had a lasting effect on Daniel, like it couldn't not have. So it was around this time, at the age of about 15, 16, that Daniel kind of gained a new hobby, you might call it. This hobby was to break into other people's houses. When he would break into these houses, sometimes he would take things, like a normal burglary, sometimes he would place things, and other times he would just move things around. He just liked to move things around and like freak people out. I feel like looking back now, I think it must have been about control, because he had control over this whole situation when he was breaking into these houses. He could even control how people would feel by like freaking them out and stuff. When Daniel was 16, he acquired a telephone number. This telephone number was for a house, and it's been speculated that this house was one that he had burgled previously, but it's never been confirmed or anything. So the number that he got hold of was for the Andrews family, which consisted of a father and his 2 teenage daughters. Now, Daniel began ringing this number and started to talk to the 2 daughters, whose names were Annie and Jessica. He told the girls that a friend at school had given him their number because he fancied Annie. He described himself to the girls as tall, good-looking, blonde, sporty, and him and Annie grew actually quite close throughout their phone calls, and they grew so close that they actually arranged to go on a date. But of course, when Daniel turned up at Annie's house to pick her up for the date, she was shocked because standing before her wasn't the good-looking, tall football player that she was expecting, but it was a dark-haired, dirty-looking, greasy Daniel. He was literally an early catfish. But Annie was a nice girl, so she said that she would go out with Daniel anyway, and they went to the local fair. After around an hour though, Annie decided that she wanted to go home. She wasn't having any fun, and also Daniel was bringing up some really weird questions. I'm slouching so much. So whilst chatting, Annie brought up the subject of her mother, who had recently passed away after losing her fight with cancer. Weirdly though, Daniel was really interested in this and was just asking some really inappropriate questions. Like, what did it feel like? How did you feel when she passed away? And how much did she suffer? Not really the best kind of chat for a first date. And needless to say, there was no second date for these 2. So after these conversations with Daniel, this kind of sparked something for Annie, that she really wanted to try and contact her mother somehow. So her and her sister Jessica decided to hold a little seance in their house to try to contact their mother. That evening, when the girls went to bed, they heard knocking on their bedroom walls. They started asking this spirit questions, and they would answer by doing a series of knocks on the walls, and the girls really thought that by the answers and everything that they were talking to their dead mother. This continued for the next few evenings until things started to ramp up a little bit. So basically it went from just the knocking to things being misplaced, things being moved, and even furniture would be moved from one side of the house to the other whilst the family were out. The girls began to think that they had awoken something much darker, and it's not actually their mum that they're speaking to. And unfortunately the dad kind of just blamed everything that was happening on the girls and said that they were doing it, they were just mucking around and they needed to stop. One evening in January of 1987, the girls heard the tapping noises again, but instead of coming from the walls, it was actually coming from the basement. Now, personally, if that was me at that point, hearing something come from the basement, I'd be out of there. I would be running, I'd be screaming, I'd be everywhere, apart from in the basement. But these brave girls, they armed themselves with a kitchen knife and they went down to the basement. When they were down there, they saw written on the wall in what looked like blood, "I'm in your room, come and find me." The girls obviously were terrified. I would have pooed myself. And they ran out of the house, they ran to their neighbour's house, and they waited there and stayed there till their father got home from work. When the father did get home from work though, he wasn't very sympathetic. He said that the girls were doing all of this themselves, they were being very silly, but maybe, drop my brush. But that maybe they were grieving over their dead mother, and he actually put them into counselling, grief counselling, which probably wasn't a bad thing anyway, but it wasn't what was causing this. So anyway, a few weeks passed and the same thing or similar thing happened again. Knocking started, and not in the basement this time, but the knocking was coming from Annie's bedroom. So the girls again went into Annie's bedroom to see what they could find, and written on the wall again looked like it was blood, said, "I'm back, find me if you can." And same as last time, of course, the girls put themselves, they ran to their neighbour's house and waited for their dad to come home. Now, by this point, when the dad arrived home, he was absolutely sick of all of this. So he thought, I'm going to march over there and I'm going to prove to you girls that there is no spirit or anything like that in this house. However, when the father went over to the house, everything looked a bit more dishevelled and like chaotic than the girls had already described to him, which he thought was pretty weird. He thought they would have overreacted, not underreacted. When he entered Annie's room as well, there was an extra message written on the wall next to the previous one, which now said, "Marry me." Now, obviously, the father was fully freaked out at this point, and he turned to exit the room, and as he did, he saw a sight that he would have never expected to see. Standing in the corner of the room was a boy wearing a blonde wig and wearing his deceased wife's clothes and makeup, and in one hand he was carrying a hatchet. I mean, God, that is literally a horror movie, isn't it? The girl's father got into a struggle with the boy, but somehow he was able to slip away. The police were called straight after, and when they arrived, they started to investigate. This lip colour does not go with this. That's literally worse, but I can't be bothered to get up and get another lipstick. Anyway, so the police discovered pretty quickly that the messages were written in ketchup and not blood, which is what they originally thought it was. They looked around the house, and when they went into Annie's room, they could see that there was a crawl space behind her wall. They went into this crawl space, and to their amazement, there was the boy curled up in a ball, just laid there all curled up. And that boy was Daniel LaPlante. The police had a whole look around the place, and they found that Daniel had tunnelled his way around the walls, so he'd make passageways so he could go underneath and in between and go into every room through the walls. He also had peepholes everywhere around the house so he could see Annie whenever he wanted in whatever room that she was in. So Daniel was the one pretending to be the girl's mother, the spirit, and there's been speculation that because Daniel was dressed up that night in the mother's clothes and makeup and everything, they think that he was going to reveal himself to the girls, and some think it's just to scare them. But you've got to think, he had a hatchet in his hand, so maybe he had planned to do more than just scare the girls that night. So Daniel was taken to a juvenile detention centre, and he was there for not even a year. He got out in October 1987 and pretty much went straight back to his old hobby of breaking into people's houses. In November, the following month, he broke in somewhere and he managed to obtain 2 handguns. On the 1st of December 1987, Daniel broke into yet again another house. This was the house of the Gustafson family. Again, I've heard that name pronounced differently so many times, but I'm going to say Gustafson. This family consisted of Andrew and Priscilla Gustafson and their 2 children, 8-year-old Abigail and 5-year-old William. There wasn't much I could find out about this young family, unfortunately. I usually like to get a bit of a background on them, see what kind of people they were like, but there wasn't much information about them at all. So on the evening of the 1st of December 1987, Andrew was at work, so that left his pregnant wife Priscilla and their 2 children at home alone. When Andrew came home from work, he came across just a horrific and heartbreaking sight. He went into the master bedroom and saw his pregnant wife, Priscilla, laid face down on the bed. She was just surrounded by blood, the sheets and the pillowcases were stained with blood. She had been raped and she had been shot point blank in the head multiple times. Andrew immediately called the police, and they arrived very shortly after, and they found the bodies of Abigail and William. They had both been drowned in separate bathrooms in the house. Now, I can't find details of how they knew this, but police managed to link Daniel to this crime pretty quickly, so a manhunt for him started straight away and his mugshot was released. Now, across town, Daniel was breaking into another house, and he had taken the owner of that house hostage, and we don't know what he was planning on doing with her. He was driving her around in her own car, but yeah, we don't know what his plans really were for that. He stopped at a gas station, and that's where an employee at the gas station recognised him from the mugshot on the news. Police arrived at the scene shortly after and found Daniel just 48 hours after he had disappeared, and he was hiding in a dumpster. As he was being inspected, police found a hair on his sock, and this belonged to 8-year-old Abigail. So this proved that he was involved in the crime. A year later, Daniel LaPlante was sentenced to 3 life sentences. In the years since his sentencing, Daniel has shown little remorse for what he has done. It's quite clear after the years since his arrest that he does suffer from various medical conditions, and it's been said that he has several multiple personality disorders. I'm not sure what the correct way to say it nowadays is, but yeah. Also, from the years of 1988 to 2014, Daniel tried to sue the courts for violating his human rights. He said that he was a practicing Satanist and that the prisons weren't giving him the correct resources for him to practice his religion. Since 2017, Daniel has been trying to appeal his sentence. He now says, "I do not have words to fully express my profound sorrow, but I am truly sorry for the harm I have caused. From the very essence of who I am, from the depths of my soul, I am sorry." But I guess you've got to think, does he really mean that, or is he just saying it to get a lighter sentence? I mean, I would say the latter. Fortunately though, LaPlante's appeal was denied, so he will spend the rest of his life in prison. Andrew Gustafson sadly died in 2014, so he never got to live to see the fate of Daniel LaPlante. However, it's alleged on his deathbed that he said, "Don't ever let him out, he should rot in prison." Well, in the end, Andrew got his final wish. So what did we think of this one? It's a bit of a twist and turn kind of story. Like, when I first started reading it, I did not expect it to turn out the way that it did. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more from me, and hit the like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next video.